Hi everyone, I am back with now the first episode of a whole series that's going to be about us discussing anything to do with Christ consciousness. So in my former episode, the one that I came back after 7 months, talking about where I've been to, what I've been doing for like 7 months not being on screen, me going through a gradual shift, and then the realization that I'm actually walking the path of having received Christ conscious energy, how it changes my work, how it changes the way I perceive and put out my magic in my work. So I realized I got a lot of questions from everyone regarding Christ consciousness, and I want to do up a series, and this today is the first one. So let's get into the proper. Let's just start with what is Christ consciousness. Okay, so let's break the name down. Christ, Jesus Christ. I think most people in modern day world, always think of Jesus as Jesus Christ. That's how the word Christ come along. And do we all know that Christ is not the last name, okay? He's not Jesus first name, Christ last name. Is really not like that, okay? It was something else, probably that actually I don't even know. Yeshua, that was what he was named, and what is the last name? Was there a last name? I have no idea. But Christ is actually from the word Christos, which is an ancient Greek word, which means anointed one. And of course, they use that as a title behind the word Jesus because he was believed, and that was historically true that he was crucified, okay? And those that believed in him believed that he's the anointed one, the Messiah, who came here to do this great mission, great work, and then his sacrifice was actually meant to be something. So I'm going to have a separate episode. I mentioned this purposely because I want to say that I will have a very separate episode talking about the great work of which he did. That sacrifice he did was a huge spell in itself. And I say spell for those who are like strictly Christians. You might think this is really heretic words that's coming out of my words. Okay, it's proper heresy for me to say that what he did was a spell, but it indeed really was if you were to perceive it from the energetic perspective, because everything, every intention, every action that everyone does has a impact, and the impact is the energy. So what he did, the energetic impact and the signature that resonated throughout the entire humanity was definitely a spell in itself. Okay, so I'll talk about that another day. So anyways, so Jesus Christ, and that's how the word Christ is now attached to Christ consciousness. As we all know, consciousness means a part of your being and essence, being aware that is way beyond, being aware of and perceiving your reality that is way beyond the 3-dimension. And this goes so far when we talk about how a person expands their consciousness, because consciousness flows with energy and it's boundless. It's not fixed to 3-dimension. It's not fixed to the literal shell and body that you have. It's not just it's got to do with it. Yes, it's definitely got to do with our life, our activity, and even because whatever we do in this world, right? Your body and your mind, what you conceive, is coherent and led by your spirit. So therefore, when your mind, body, and spirit aligns, you therefore carry out very intentional work, which is, again, a very big output of your energy in the right direction, okay? That's it. When we tap into the deeper part of our spirit, there lies our consciousness. And how much we receive that is beyond what our 3-dimensional being is capable of receiving, all is attached to the part of us where the expansion of our consciousness is at. Okay, so Christ consciousness, in a more simplified form, I will liken it to walking the path of what Jesus Christ did. Being Christ-like. Being in all your being, your whole person, whether it's the way you think, your mind, the way you act, your body, and the way you feel. And when I say feel, I don't use this loosely. Sorry. Stewie. Shh. He's my puppy is 7 months old now. He's a rebellious teenager. So he's very barky. If you can ignore that, that would be great. So, where was I? Okay, so the mind, the body, Christ-like, in terms of being Christ-like, your mind and your body, you think like Christ, you act like Christ. But last but not least, but extremely, extremely important, is when your heart is the heart of Christ. Okay, so again, in history, actually there's been lots of anointed individuals who made huge impact to humanity through their work. And it's nothing short of very Jesus Christ-like actually in their work. Okay? In New Age terminology, they are commonly known as our ascended masters. Okay? Buddha is one such individual. But of course, Buddha doesn't come with the word Buddha Christ, because Buddha did not receive the title Christ at the back due to culture, place, time. Yeah, you know what I mean, right? There was like no Greek friend who called him Buddha Christ. But what I'm trying to say is, to be Christ-like, we are just drawing reference to what Jesus did first, because that's where the name of the Christ origin, the title comes from. Okay, to draw reference to what Jesus did. Jesus is a person. When he was around, if you were to follow the story of what he did, a huge amount of his work comes from deep, altruistic compassion. And this deep altruistic compassion, which eventually formed itself to be highly sacrificial, is in itself the essence, the pinnacle of this Christ consciousness. Therefore, the conscious aspect of Christ consciousness refers to altruistic compassion, which one can have if one were to walk the path that is of Jesus Christ. So now let's take this back a little. When I received the energy of Christ consciousness, I just want to say I am very far from being fully Christ-like. Okay, very far from being like Jesus Christ. And this is, I'm not speaking about like literally all the things that he did is just not measurable, not comparable. But however, I knew that there was a point in my life where I aligned my perspectives and aligned my heart and the way I feel towards things and towards situations, to a point whereby I can say yes, I entered a state of altruistic compassion, altruistic love. Okay? There's a lot of nitty-gritty in how I got there. It's definitely to do with me overcoming a huge part of my shadow. All that is linked to me in my own alchemy towards my life and the challenges I've been through. I will feel more ready to give everybody the real rundown of who were the participants of that storyline, such that it got me to that point. But this video is not about that. I just want to extrapolate that segment and say that it's because I managed to alchemize that part of my life and overcome that shadow. And that was not a small one. That was probably the biggest karmic blockage in my life. And once that hurdle was passed, it was a gigantic milestone in my spiritual awakening journey. What came after was the compassion, the deep altruistic level of love and compassion that I can say without a doubt, I am in that state now. Okay, and so when I'm in that state, the kind of energy that flows through me as I draw it from any sources that is not just me producing my own energy, but even in the frequency of what I attract and in my environment, they all contribute to the renewability of my energy. Everybody has their own energy core. It's your heart. And with whatever you do, whatever your intention is, all those currents that flow through you, through your own being, may or may not help you recreate your energy, or rather renew it. So I know that in the work that I do, more often than not, I am recreating my energy. I found that sometime about last year, all this shift happened last year. I found that I no longer drew my energy sources from what it used to be. I used to work with the elements around me. I used to work with plants. Okay, I don't work that much with crystals. I sometimes do, but more with plants and animals. And I work with mostly nature. That's where I draw my energy from. And then, of course, there were a few times I worked with archetypal aspects of the nature, which are deities, which are like deities of different pantheons. Anyways, that was until sometime early last year. And then I realized that suddenly there was a huge shift in the way I renew and draw in my energy. In fact, very seldom do I need to search for energy from external sources. There would just be, it's almost like there is this, my heart has become a very efficient, renewable battery source. Just like that. It just grows tremendous amounts of energy for me every day, such that when I output that energy into my work, it's like the more love, and I mean love not like just my passion in the work, but when I put real compassion in the work and towards the individuals who receive the work, their energy grows even more. On top of that, there is a shift of perception. My eyes see the world differently. My intention towards people and the world shifted together with this shift of perception. It's an entire quantum shift. Some might call this a paradigm shift, but whichever is the frequency of where I was resonating at as a whole being shifted. And therefore, the energy, the state of energy I was in, I was flowing at Christ conscious energy. And there is a way more in-depth way to explain how to get there. However, to answer the main question for the day, which is, do you have to, so this is Christ conscious energy, okay? But do you have to be a Christian to be it? No. To receive? No, the answer is no. So a little background about myself, which if you have watched former videos, you already know this. I'm not born Christian, I'm not born Catholic. I do not know much of the Bible. I don't know my scriptures. I don't know which verse, which chapter, all these, I really don't know. Yes, I have in the past attended church a few times here and there, but mostly it's because it's a social situation. And I have nothing against it. I would still voluntarily go, but I don't go religiously, if that's what you guys are thinking. I don't like go every Sunday. I do not have a favorite pastor. I do not have a favorite verse in the Bible. I do not live my life by the scriptures. I live my life by knowing there's God and that there is one source, one God. Some might call it universe, some might call it God, some call God another name. I do not have a segregation. Actually, I am all about just one source and one God. And so anyways, yeah, you don't have to be a Christian. You know what you have to be though? Yeah, I think this is what most people are interested in now that you watch at least until this point. Thank you so much for sticking around. You have to have real compassion. I emphasize, if you are still suffering in trauma, if you are still unable to let go of, if you're still unable to let go or release any form of resentment, any form of shadow aspect that usually has to do with the heart space. I mean, let's face it, most of our shadow aspects are attached to the heart space. Pain, trauma, hurt, fear. Yeah, a whole spectrum, a whole spectrum of it. Even part of ego, a huge part of ego. All that are blockers to receiving this light and this anointment of the Christ conscious power. And to a good extent, I might even say, if you are deliberately doing things, whether you think you can, wow, I am going to have another episode. Well, I'm just constantly telling myself I have to start this episode on this and that. But I do want to talk about how people pay their way into receiving these spiritual experiences or titles, upgrades, whatever they want to call that. There's a lot of spiritual bypassing. That is a whole subject in itself, a whole brand new can of worms that we will open one day. But yeah, there's a lot of spiritual bypassing, and if you want to skip past a lot of things and then just like ask me a question, how do I get Christ conscious energy? How do I flow with it? Then my answer to you is shadow work first. Always start with knowing yourself. Always start with self. Once you work with yourself, once you work through your shadow and go deeper and deeper to understand where all the blockages in your life are coming from, which mostly leads back to the heart, you will come closer to unblocking that biggest ever, I would say the biggest ever part of you that is taking your sovereignty away from you. Because receiving Christ conscious energy has a lot to do with coming back onto the sovereign path of knowing that all these divinity, all these powers and energy rightfully belongs to you. It is your birthright. I continuously emphasize this to everybody. You actually have this spiritual birth certificate that says you are born of source. Your soul is a piece of source. Therefore, your power, your sovereignty is your birthright. But why is it that we don't have it? Or why is it we can't seem to access it or even know that we have it? Because of the, I hate to say this, but if we were to follow the biblical story, it is known as Adam taking the fruit from the tree of knowledge. But if we were to not go in a biblical way, okay, because I know a lot of you watching are probably not into that biblical stuff. If we were to look at it from the New Age or even just basic, like understanding from a non-religious perspective, when we are born into this world, the dimension that we're born in is simply not the same as us being in our spiritual dimension. And as we are souls without bodies. A lot of it is blocked behind a self-created perception. If we all walk into this world knowing we have that power and that birthright without earning it, can you imagine what kind of world this would be? Therefore, tying this back to the question, how do I come into having the energy of Christ consciousness? You have to earn it. You have to earn it to release this power upon yourself. And how to earn it? It's to alchemize your path here, your challenges here, difficulties that you picked up in this life that you're living. They are difficulties in the form of a test. All these tests you have to pass. You have to learn, you have to perceive, you have to work through it, you have to consume it, okay, in your conscious intellect and process it. And it's this alchemy work, this laboratory that is in your consciousness, working through the different things in your life, that is what eventually produces the final outcome, bringing you closer to receiving in the same frequency, receiving and resonating that frequency of Christ consciousness. So yes, in order to receive Christ conscious energy, you cannot buy it. You cannot just, I can't even say that you meditate to get it. No, you cannot just meditate and have it. It doesn't work like that. You can't go for a retreat. You can't go and have someone do some energy work on you and you receive it. That's not how it works. The work works within you, yourself. You are the laboratory. Your consciousness, your mind, body, and spirit as one aligned body is the laboratory where the alchemy takes place. Only when you work on yourself, knowing yourself and your shadows, and putting yourself through that work, then you will come closer to the frequency of being able to receive Christ conscious energy. So one last thing I'd like to say before I end this video. Some might even ask, why have that energy? What's it for? Why do we care for it? Personally, it's extremely important for me because the whole time I'm doing this spiritual work that I'm doing, helping others, coming closer to understanding their path, working through it, walking on it, and coming closer to a destined path that they carve out for themselves. This spiritual awakening and spiritual ascension process, I'm trying to bring people closer to the light and the love of the purest form. And in my past, I have used and worked with different forms of energies and with different entities and sources. But I will be very honest, what I'm doing now with Christ conscious energy is the purest form that I have ever felt, the highest resonating energy that I've ever felt. And for me, I hold very high regard to this. I hold a very high regard of this energy. Now, for yourself, if you are trying to, if you're not a spiritual worker, but you just want to have a higher quality and a higher version of your life in this lifetime, I would say maybe that could be the real good reason why you want to come closer to receiving Christ conscious energy. If you're a spiritual worker, then I would love to talk to you to help bring you closer to this understanding. But if you're not, I'll say, I'll ask you back the question, do you want to live the best version of yourself? Do you want to magnify the potential of this lifetime for yourself? If you do, and you are not doing it because you are greedy, you just want to live a good, happy life, you are doing it because you want to bring the highest degree of care and love you can to your loved ones, you want this life to be phenomenal and splendid, then I'll say, yes, I think this Christ conscious energy is something you will find wonderful to have. But again, it's not something that you can just want and you will show up. There's work to be done. Okay, so I think I said enough for today. There's, of course, lots of questions. This will appear in other videos in this series. And thank you so much for sticking around, watching this video. I'll see you at the next one.